Well, greetings, everyone, and welcome to a special online event today called Three Keys to Understanding Your Emotional Currency. Discover a compassionate approach to healing the way you think and feel about money. My name is Stephen Dine. I'm the president and CEO of the Shift Network, and I'm really delighted to be doing this program with you today because I really recognize that money is often one of the biggest barriers to our conscious, good-hearted, spiritual folk to really become effective at shifting the world. And so we've recognized this, that there's often a lot of residual energies around money to shift it to a higher octave. And I believe our featured faculty today, Kate Levinson, is going to really illuminate the pathway for how to do that so that we can up-level our relationship with money, which empowers us on all levels to be healthier, to be happier, and actually to be more impactful in the world as well. She's an author and therapist and brand new teacher for the Shift Network. She has a PhD in clinical psychology, and she's really been working for quite some time on the interface of money and psychology and helping her clients shift their relationships with money from a psychological perspective. So it's a delight and honor to have you. Thanks for joining us today, Kate.
Thank you so much for having me, Stephen.
Great. Well, we're going to have this hour with Kate, and we're going to get as much value as we can. And I want to let you know up front that we have a chance to go much deeper with her in an upcoming 7-week program. It's the first one we've ever done in this genre. So it's going to be very exciting and a real breakthrough in understanding emotional currency and a compassionate approach to healing the way you think and feel about money. So we'll share a little bit about that towards the end of the hour. So, Kate, it's always great to have a little bit of backstory. Why have you dedicated your life to this work and feeling that it's so important for people to gain greater clarity and mastery of this domain?
Well, it wasn't something that I intended to focus on in my work as a psychotherapist, but certainly I've been called to do it, and I love the work. It's very important to me. I think we live in this insane world when it comes to money, and that we are in a culture that not only does not encourage us to be mindful, it discourages us from reflecting on money or understanding money in so many ways, from financial literacy to understanding it emotionally and spiritually and politically. So since money touches every aspect of our lives, it's a huge area where almost all of us are unconscious and unaware and struggling, whether we have money or not. This is not about how much money we have. It's totally about our consciousness about money and our emotional relationship to money. And I've learned that there's so much growth when we actually look at money more holistically, when we hold money in all the different ways it manifests in our lives. So I feel very privileged to have this focus of my work for the last few years, and I'm grateful to the Shift Network for this opportunity to share some of my work with others.
Great. Well, I feel like it's so important, and there's a couple things come to mind. In the recovery community, they often say you're sick as your secrets, or you're only as sick as your secrets, and oftentimes money is one of the last things people are willing to talk about publicly or with each other. Even I've noticed that in men's groups or smaller intimate groups that when you get to money, you've really got a lot of level of trust that people are willing to share. So I'd love you to share just a little bit about maybe why we have such a troubled relationship with money, and maybe how do you start to untangle that from a psychological perspective?
Well, I think money holds so many different meanings for us, and as you say, we hide about it. We have shame about it. We have shame for how much we have, or how little we have, or how we manage money. We're isolated. Because of the taboo against talking about money, we don't get to hear from one another about issues. We actually, I think, project a lot on other people and imagine that they have their money, lives, that they don't have problems, that they're, wealthier than they are, or whatever we're projecting. We imagine that we're among the few who have problems with money. And the taboo is especially damaging, I think, to women because as women, we share so much about other parts of our lives. We keep things secret. Exactly what you said, Stephen. When we keep things secret, we have these dark loops and these habitual behaviors that we can't really see, let alone illuminate or understand in other ways. So the darkness, the hiding of it, the shame, and then all the forces in our society that that isolate us in terms of money and make us actually crazy, make us want more, the never having a sense of enough, the issues of race and gender and income inequality. I could go on and on about all the different forces that undermine our sense of wholeness and undermine our relationship to money. And that untangling is really about putting our attention to this, breaking through the taboos about looking and reflecting and understanding money in a more holistic and in a fuller way, getting beyond just looking at the bank statement, the bottom line, or how much we have in our ATM, how much we have in our bank account when we go to the ATM, getting beyond that concrete hold that money has and working with it. As we work with so many other emotional issues in our lives, it actually brings a huge change, I think, in our relationship to money.
So let's go into a little bit this notion you have of emotional currency, which I think is very intriguing. So it sort of is a bridge point between our feelings and our and actual money. So let's share a little bit more about how you develop that and what is it that we're cultivating with emotional currency?
Well, maybe a little story of the origin of my work is appropriate here. I had been a therapist for many years, and I hadn't realized that in my training and in my own personal therapy and analysis that I had never talked about money. And the way that came to light for me was that my husband and I sold a house in one of the few dips in the real estate market in at least my adult life. There have been very few dips in real estate values, and we sold during one of them. And we did this because I was absolutely clear that I wanted to sell the house without going into that backstory. I had a moment which I can feel in my body, where I was and that feeling of deciding that I needed to sell this house. And it was in sync with my husband's needs as well. So we sold the house, and almost immediately the real estate values were increasing. We were living in a rental, a very nice place. We had money in the bank, but I'd walk through the neighborhood and I felt as if I was a bag lady. Literally imagined that I was a bag lady, that I was disenfranchised, that I would never be able to own a home again, and that I didn't really have a place where I belonged. And I could not shake this, no matter how much I talked to my husband or my friends, or I talked differently to myself. I couldn't change that feeling. So I went back to therapy, and with the intention of looking at money, because I knew that some wires were crossed. I was too crazy about this. And I found out a lot about myself in doing that. I thought that I could just walk in the door in the therapist's office and sit down and understand money in my life. But I had to go through the back door, and I had to understand my family and my growing up and big dramas in my family around money. And but what I learned was how crucial to my security owning a home was, which I really hadn't realized. And I learned that money was a real source of security for me, or so I thought. I don't think it really was, but that I constructed it so that money was really life or death. And again, all of this was completely out of my awareness until I had this experience of feeling so vulnerable and feeling so marginalized. And I think that that's really true with money, that we have these ideas about what we think money is, or how we like to be with money. And that because we're disconnected from our experience, our direct experience of money in so many ways, we push away our feelings. We're not supposed to have feelings, right? In the financial markets or fields of finance, where emotions are seen as actually dangerous to sound money management. But in fact, we all have feelings. We all have feelings about money. And that until I was able to see what those feelings were, it's like, again, like anything in our lives, until we can see what is so, we don't know what we need to do to fix or change our relationship to, in this case, to money. And so having it, getting to see my vulnerabilities in terms of money and my feelings about money really shifted things for me and helped. And that's what actually led me to want to be talking in my therapy and with my clients, to lead workshops, to tell each other our stories, so that we can, by hearing other people's stories, we can have a better sense of what's true for us, and get a handle on money in our lives.
Beautiful. I thank you for the vulnerability in that story. I feel like it really illumines a lot just how just being able to be transparent about the stories and attachments we have around it. So let's start to go into some of the practices. I know you bring a lot into mindfulness and the deeper awareness. So what are some of the practices and principles of how we begin to enter into a deeper relationship with money and really access our emotional currency?
Well, I think the foundation probably is appreciating that, rather than this is something to solve, right? How do I get out of this money mess? Or if only I had more money, or if only I took care of this task or made this decision, that my problems would go away. Money isn't really the panacea that we think it is. People with wealth have issues about money as well. Recognizing that there are many lessons and teachings in our relationship to money, and that we want to broaden the scope so that we're not just looking again at the bottom line or the balance in our checking account or our income or salary, that we want to broaden the scope of what we're attending to a holistic relationship to money. And that the problems and the struggles we have, much as in other areas of our lives, can teach us so much about who we are, and that working to align our feelings with our values, with our money lives, is the goal, and to learn as much as we can in the process, so that getting out of the judgmental mind is a huge shift. I see it as being generous with ourselves in terms of understanding where some of our habitual beliefs and practices, behaviors with money come from. Understanding that some of the behaviors that might be getting us in trouble are actually telling us something about our relationship to money. So that's another, how we approach money rather than having just anxiety and judgment, having curiosity and appreciation that this is something that is integral to our whole being. It's not spirit and matter being separate. It's not psychology and money being separate. It's not emotion and money being separate. That all of them have an interplay that teach us and that provide opportunities for growth. So I think that's the first, probably the foundation is embracing it rather than pushing it away, rather than putting the statements under our beds and not paying attention and not engaging with money. That's probably the first. And then the second one is really listening to ourselves, listening to what it feels like when we use the dollar, what it feels like when we get the statement, what it feels like when we have an unexpected expense, when we have to fix our car, for instance. Listening what it feels like and what money holds for us. What are the messages that we're telling ourselves? What are the stories that we're telling ourselves about money? Becoming conscious, sitting with that, listening, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's painful, even when it feels like, oh, here I go again. But listening in a deeper, more active way to ourselves, listening to others, listening to what other people are telling us about money, listening to what the society is telling us, kind of collecting, gathering all the different multiple forces. I mean, whenever I talk about money, I feel like I'm missing huge pieces because it's really hard to put our arms around how huge money is in our lives and all the different forces that contribute to how we relate to the money in our wallet, the choices we make around money. So letting it be as big as it is in our lives and seeing what it is in our lives. And it's different for each of us. We each have a completely different relationship to money. So this is very different than financial money where we fit in a formula, where we're given a budget. This emotional money, psychological money, is diverse and unique, and we each our relationship is our personal economy is as varied as our fingerprints vary. So recognizing the uniqueness and with curiosity, not judgment, and bringing understanding to it.
Okay, what I love about what you're sharing is that there's this sense of just like really creating some spaciousness first, because often we're trying to change our money story, like we're changing our relations. There's a kind of a negativity or a charge, like, oh, I wish I could just get rid of that pattern. But it sounds like it's at first a kind of a more neutral, spacious presencing of what's really going on. And then before you even attempt to change anything, you're just kind of a more witnessing it.
Exactly. Slowing down. I think money's energy pushes us to be really fast and get that payment in and make that buck and go out and get it. And this is sitting back, reflecting, seeing what is so. Just what you said, Steve, and not changing things until we really understand what's going on. We can't come up with a good solution in our own lives to the challenges we face, the decisions we have to make, until we really understand what are the elements here. Exactly, reflection and uncovering and exploration and discovery is the first step.
How do you advise people get into the deeper layers, because sometimes, let's say that you've got your parents didn't have very much money growing up, and so you have a story of scarcity, and so people don't want to go and really dig underneath that. So, how do you kind of like start to peel back the layers in this kind of compassionate, non-judgmental way?
I think you nailed it. Story is the gateway. Actually, it's going to be one of the modules, one of the week's topics, is telling our stories. And again, because we don't talk about money, we aren't familiar with a lot of stories that are within us. So writing, talking, uncovering, remembering small incidents that happened to us growing up, maybe big dramas, like my family was a big drama. A lot of families have big dramas around money. But telling the stories to ourselves so that we can see without analyzing, without interpreting. But it's one of the ways to see, I think, what our experience was, what the feelings we attach to money, the meanings we attach, are revealed through telling story. And another way in is just to notice when you're, well, I was going to say writing a check, but most people don't write many checks these days, but staying awake when we're signing the credit card slip, or when the restaurant bill comes and it's more than we expected, or whatever. All the numerous incidents we have, small incidents with money, can really reveal a lot if we're awake to the moment, if we're paying attention, and that each of those incidents leads us into a deeper place. And of course, anxiety and worry, the negative emotions, are very powerful to take us to understanding more about what we bring to our relationship to money.
Well, let's go a little deeper with the story element you're sharing. So there's both our personal story, but it sounds like a family story, and then also a cultural story. Maybe understand, different subcultures too, as we're coming from different. I've noticed that, I came from a more middle class culture, and my wife came from a more upper middle class culture, and we definitely have the different stories that we're bringing in.
Absolutely, and race also. We want to include race because race hugely impacts money, our relationships to money, and our financial circumstances. So when you bring up relationship, so I have a similar relationship with my husband that I think, and it would be so interesting for us to compare our relationships, because I came from middle class background and my husband came from a working class background. It doesn't predict what our relationships to money will be, but we're different. And he has much less anxiety about money than I do. So, right, you would think in a way that because I've always, at least growing up, I always had enough, that I would feel more secure about money, but actually not at all. So how our stories, how our situations impacted us has everything to do with our own personal psychology. And I also think what was around us at the time, right? We know a lot that how we feel about money is really determined by the community we live in and the other people that we're growing up with or that we live around. So again, it always comes back to the stories are very particular and our relationship is very unique and particular. And then the cultural story is huge, right? Growing up in a different society, growing up in a society, a society where there is more of a safety net. We have very little safety net in our culture now. It's very cold-hearted about money. And so that makes a difference, and that we've been marketed to for generations and generations that having the latest whatever, having money to buy the newest whatever can make us whole, can make us feel adequate, and that actually we're not adequate unless we have the latest car, the latest color sweater, the latest whatever. And so I think that also really influences this part of the healing in the course of the work and in this course will be to move into a sense of adequacy that comes from other places other than money. We live in a culture where money is literally God, and where it determines so much of the opportunity we have, or how we imagine our self-worth, or our status in the culture. And so unhooking money from having such a powerful place in our lives is a piece of the healing, as I see it.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk a little bit about gender. You mentioned race, but you've also written a lot about women in particular. And we just had the Money and Women Summit that you were a part of. And just what are some of the specific gender dynamics that factor in with women's relationship with money?
Well, kind of don't get me started. Excuse me, there just money's been one of the ways that women have been marginalized in the society, have been taught that we have less value. We're paid less for the same job. It's only recently in human time, let alone geological time, that we have had access to our own money, right? In this country, women couldn't get credit cards in their own name or have their own credit standing until, I can't remember, early 70s, late 60s.
Shocking.
When we married, any assets we had became our husband's assets. So there's so many ramifications for women, for the ancestral memory of the kind of dependency and disempowerment and misogyny that's been expressed through money. And I think that it's very exciting to see women stepping up more. And I think that we're at another cusp of breaking through a social pattern that is still very entrenched, but I feel very encouraged. And it's part of why I think it's so important to be having these conversations now, because as individuals, we can make headway, but the headway that we want to shift the consciousness in the world will only happen. And I also think that really we can only empower ourselves individually so far, that we also need to be united with other women, and that certainly to shift consciousness in our country and the world, we need to be united together, that it will take all of us, many of us, shifting to make serious inroads, which haven't really happened yet, to women being empowered around their personal money lives and being empowered in the workplace to be making equal pay or close to equal pay, even moving it closer. It's really important that we have a lot of self-worth issues because of the way we're treated as less than. And money is a powerful way that we're given that message that we aren't worth what men are worth. And it's damaging to men too, clearly, right? So the rebalancing really needs to happen within each of us and within the collective, within the societies.
Well, it strikes me also in listening to you, it's like you're talking about our cold-hearted relationship with money and how we've kind of focused on divorcing our any sort of related aspect that money is trying to just make more money for itself. And in a way, it's like, well, we need to reintegrate the feminine, not just bringing more money to women, which is important, but also reintegrate the spirit of the feminine into our relationship with money. It strikes me.
Exactly, for men too, to bring the values of the collective, the nurturing values. Money provides lots of nurturance and opportunity to take care of ourselves and one another. To realize that we're connected to one another, that it's not just how much can I get for myself. It's not just my greedy instincts that I need to pay attention to. I also need to pay attention to my concern for connection and for others, to bring feeling, to bring our hearts to our relationship to money, to look at the bigger picture, not just the dollars and cents. That money is a mystery. That money generates so much positive action. So yes, bringing the feminine is really probably, when I think about it, the number one shift to make. So the financial way of looking at money is very much the masculine, and that's what's dominated our relationship to money. And that has value. The bottom line has value. But without the feminine, can be very destructive, and especially for women, I think. So bringing the more intuitive, the softer side of money, valuing that and embracing that is probably the biggest way that we can shift our relationship to money. Nice way of saying it.
I love the way you just reflected that. That was beautiful. Well, let's talk a little bit. I mean, I know one of the reasons people are motivated to work on their relationship with money is often that they want more of it. And so, and that may not always be the solution, it sounds like. So it's like, so there's the process of kind of really opening up in a meditative, contemplative, dispassionate or compassionate way to see our stories. But then how do we begin to shift things so that we open to more flow, more abundance, or at least more right relationship with money?
Well, again, a very particular, non-formulaic process of seeing what needs to be healed. What some people pay way too much attention to money. Other people need to pay more attention to money. But flow and energy is a really important aspect, and it comes from inside. So we begin inside, and then we do the healing, and we do the seeing and the understanding, and we do the healing and seeing what kind of support we need, because we can't figure it out all alone, and what actions we need to take in the world. Again, it's not just the feminine, it's not just the beingness of money, it's also the action of the masculine. So it's the rebalancing, and where are the leaks in our energy? Where are we not paying attention, and kind of get more of a hum with our relationship to money? We get a field that's more supportive of us and more aligned with our values. And for some people, that is needing to increase our abundance financially. It is about finding new work or asking for more money or many things, right? For other people, it's really about lessening the stranglehold of money, I like to say, in over their lives, and letting other values and other creativities and other alivenesses in, which then balance out their relationship to money. So it's not that it isn't about making more money, but it isn't about making more money for everyone. And again, as you said earlier, Stephen, it's really about reflection and sitting first and getting a sense of where am I impaired? Where am I holding myself back? Where are my blocks? That's one of the module, the word blocks. Where am I blocked? And when those blocks open, then the energy can go can be expressed in ways that better support ourselves.
Beautiful. Well, I feel like you have such a deep wisdom perspective on this. And I want to create a little space for, I've asked you various questions. It feels like some of the areas that you want to cover today that I haven't asked questions about, just some of the teachings that are really valuable for people to understand.
One thing that comes to mind that floats up is the sense of how we all are in our own bubbles when it comes to money, and that's part of the distortion that happens, and part of the block is just having our own habits and projections and not having much input from people who are different than we are, in different financial circumstances or have different financial backgrounds. Increasingly, we keep to our own. And if we do have friends who have different financial circumstances, we want to close our eyes to those differences, right? We want to just assume that they can afford to go out to this restaurant when we can, or we don't want to bring up that we can't go out to dinner tonight because we don't have money to pay for dinner. We minimize our issues. We try to keep them down. And in doing so, we lose a sense of connecting to people who have different circumstances, learning from other people. So one of my healings has been to help a friend in distributing clothes to homeless people. And it works in so many ways. It's the right medicine for me, but I feel it somatically. I just feel being with people who are staying alive, trying to stay sane, or just survive on the streets is a deep medicine for me, medicine for my heart. To feel the pain of other people's circumstances is profoundly healing for me. So I refer back to this bubble a lot because I think we're really increasingly a society where we stick with our own and we don't want to feel other people's pain. And opening our hearts to money means feeling other people's pain and other people's joy as well. And trying to make sense of this unequal world when we know actually now it could be more equal. How do we make sense? How do we navigate through a world where some of us have a lot and some of us have very little? And so that's heart work to me, very, very deep healing heart work.
Beautiful. Well, one thing that occurs to me is just maybe give a little more sense of the kinds of practices that people can do. So I think you've really laid out a very clear vision of like how we shift the relationship. But so do you recommend doing journaling practice or dialoguing with a friend, or so just to give us a flavor of some of the kinds of ways that people can approach this?
So absolutely talking to other people, really up there in terms of opening, receiving, understanding, shifting. I write in my book that there was a close friend who had really helped me through several issues, career issues and relationship issues. And we started talking about money, and she asked me how much I made, and she laughed at me, and she didn't tell me how much she made. And so I learned from that I might not be able to talk about money with a friend who's been quite considered close and very supportive in other ways because of their own money issues. So I think she just had a lot of competition tied up in money and a lot of actually shame about money as well. So finding someone who feels comfortable talking to about money is really a very rich practice. Recognizing that you're going to feel shame when you do this because you're breaking a taboo, because most of us don't talk about money. We're not used to revealing about this to one another. And so that's another source of shame. Tolerating the shame, staying with it, and just talking to them about what their issues are, what their struggles, whether they're trying to decide whether to give their kids money or whether or ask their kids for money, or helping a friend or a relative, or asking for a raise, the multitude of different situations. Talking about what keeps them up in the middle of the night, but not just in terms of a solution, but listening, holding, and then talking yourself, and then also talking to one another about how it feels to be sharing that. A source of more support and relief than you can imagine until you do it. And recognizing that if the person responds in a way that doesn't feel comfortable to you, to let them know, or to find another friend that you want to talk to about money. So that's an important practice. The other big practice is writing, journaling, writing about your life. Writing a money autobiography is amazing. So writing in terms of what disappointments you had, what you wanted as a kid, what happened to your allowance, why you didn't get more allowance when you asked for it, sharing with a sibling, all the endless ways that we learn about money in our families, writing up chronological accounting of money in your life reveals so much. And or you can go back to when you left home, and you can pick one time period in your life when you were really struggling, or when you were on your own for the first time, or your first job, or getting a raise. You can take one incident and write deeply, write in a free associative way, meaning that you write whatever comes to mind. You don't have a narrative. You really want to get deeper into your experience and to begin to connect some of the dots about why you feel the way you do about money, why you behave the way you do about money. And those stories will offer you much understanding and appreciation. Those are the two main ones, I'd say.
Great. Well, and I know that one of the ways people can really have much more clarity and opening around this area is through your upcoming 7-week program. So I want to spend some time talking about that. And first of all, I just want to honor just the depth that you bring to this subject. There's just a settledness, a transparency. It's so nice not to just have it all be hype about like making more money or abundance. Some of that just feels like it's a little still bit coming from the fear and distortion pattern versus a real kind of like deep acceptance of what is, and a compassion for getting into right relationships. So I really feel that emanate from you. And I know that people who take your upcoming 7-week program are really going to be blessed with a real healing around their relationship with money. And those who need to create more are going to be in a position to do so because they're more freed up. And those who just want to shift into a more right relationship and settle into the money that they have in a different way, I think people will also benefit in that way. So the program is called Understanding Your Emotional Currency. As I said, it's a 7-week program. You can see the details laid out at emotionalcurrencycourse.com. Again, that's emotionalcurrencycourse.com. And Kate's this is not just a theoretical journey. This is about a practical, experiential, uncovering, healing, deep dive into your stories around money, your subconscious patterns, and to have a healing around that, to really shift that so that you're freeing up all of that stuck or stagnant energy, the stuff in the shadows, the stuff that you might feel ashamed around, you're freeing it up. So this is kind of like a therapeutic journey with your relationship with money. So Kate, I'd love for you to share in your own words what you're going to be sharing with people and what they can expect from the journey from you, and then take people on a tour of the modules that you're going to be teaching.
The first week is turning inward, exploring your inner relationship with money without judgment. So we'll really be practicing together how we go inside, techniques, and including writing and sharing with one another, because there'll be opportunities on the live video webinar to share with one another and hear from others and get to tell others about your relationship to money. So it is a shift. I think shift's such a great word. It's now in my vocabulary. It's a shift of moving money from something so concrete that we touch every day and that feels like it's the only solution or the only way, the best way to deal with it is in terms of dollars and cents. It's really beginning to shift our awareness into money as a more of this emotional, symbolic, psychological, spiritual energy in our lives. And cultivating, for each of us, cultivating our own practices to carry through the 7-week course that will ground us and hold us in dealing with money this way. And then the second week is emotional currency, discovering the value of your emotional responses to money. So we'll be covering specific feelings and uncovering what feelings money holds for you and how to look at money in this deeper way. This is not about therapy at this point. This is really about, well, I guess it is about therapy. It's not about fixing anything. It's about, as I said earlier, about seeing more and more and more about what money is in your life and the feelings that you attach in the current time. You know, a lot of the exploration will be going back in upcoming modules, but right now it's really about current time and what dilemmas are you're facing and what feelings you bring to that, and seeing if we can slow down and relax and really untangle the pieces so that we can see what the feelings are. Also, a lot of support during the course to recognize that you're not doing it wrong because you have issues with money. That money by its very nature, in this time and place, we all have issues. We all are crazy in ways about money. And really getting that through the group, the support, the hearing from other people normalizes, I think, for us in a way that we can't normalize our own feelings. But hearing from one another, understanding that we all have feelings and that we all have a tangle to untangle. And recognizing also in terms of emotional currency that it's not just our doing, that the culture teaches us that we're rich because we're better, we're poor because we're of less value. It's a little reductionistic, but that sense that any issues we have, we're to blame. And in fact, we'll be talking about so many of the cultural forces that have contributed to our being how we are about money. Module 3 are money stories, getting to our experiences. And here we'll be starting to tell each other stories and telling ourselves our stories. And we'll focus more on family and what we learned from our families and how our families dealt with money and felt about money. Module 4 is self-worth and valuing the feminine, finding worth beyond money. So we'll be talking a lot about the feminine, which Stephen and I started to talk about, and also talking about self-worth and how I mentioned unhooking our self-worth from what we have and how do we really ground our self-worth? Where do we find true self-worth that is authentic to who we are? Module 5, money and spirit, a favorite of mine, looking at different spiritual traditions and the teachings that they bring to us about money and how money and spirit are so intertwined, not separate as we've been taught, that matter and spirit are separate. They very much work in unison, and there are many there's much room for spiritual growth and understanding in an incredibly grounded way in terms of how we use money and how we view money and how we experience money. And then module 6 is the blocks to earning, investing, having, using, and attending to money. So this is probably the most therapeutic part of the traditionally therapeutic part of the course, where we'll actually be looking at the blocks and what composes the blocks for each of us. Again, I have my particular issues with money and my particular makeup around money, which is not true for anyone else. So the course is really designed to support you and to support whatever your journey is around money, whatever your financial circumstances are about money, to lead towards more empowerment and more engagement in your relationship and to unblock what's blocked. So it's the course, if it's working really well, will speak to you, and when it's not, I want to hear from you. When I've imposed my own biases or my own money view onto the course. Module 7, healing money wounds and making money your own. So this is where we'll do some more therapeutic work in terms of healing our pains. And making money your own is my way of saying that aligning our practices with money, how we use money and spend money and make money, aligning that with our deeper values, something that is not talked about much, but that split between having caring values in the world, but making money in a way that is not caring of other people or the world, or investing money in a way that's not, or wherever the disparity is, actually is undermining to us. Having big credit card debt, the consequences of that emotionally are I think underappreciated, underrated, and that big debt really does keep us in the past and burdens us. So getting current with money, and that's an ongoing process. I experience now money very differently than I did 5 years ago. My circumstances, and I have new issues to deal with. So I'm not an expert about any of the participants, about you. I am here to guide the process, and that each of you who participates in the course will take a very different course, and that's assigned to me of something that is. Well, let's just say I should say I want to design the course that's elemental enough so that it speaks to each of you, but then you can carry it in your own particular way towards helping you become more free about money, to have more ease about money, and to live a richer life. Have money support you.
Beautiful. Well, I think it's really clear to me just how much wisdom and depth and compassion you bring to this area, that it's such an area of great wounding. And in many ways, it's sort of like the uncharted area where people have talked about so many other areas of wounding, and this tends not to get surfaced as much, and it holds us back on a lot of different levels. So given how much time and energy and focus of our lives revolves around money, I think this is a very important investment for people to make, so that we can get more clear and free and abundant and generous and being able to take care of ourselves in a good way too. I think that one thing I should note is that this course, we have designed this course more for women than for men, because partially because we have more, we're coming out of the Money and Women Summit, and we have more women in our network, and I think it's important for the feminine to be brought back in. But it is open to men as well. So you're welcome to, whatever your gender is, to participate in this program. But just know that for women, there's going to be also a particular flavor of opening and welcoming to some of the issues that are more specific to women. I'll say also this, so really at the end of the journey, we feel confident you're going to emerge with a more conscious, compassionate, and clear relationship with money. So you can dismantle a lot of old attitudes, things that aren't serving you anymore, but do so not from like trying to force them, but there's a kind of a gentle dropping away that happens when they're really brought to the light of day and seen with compassion, and that you can move on to a more positive and healthy relationship. So again, you can find all the details on this program at emotionalcurrencycourse.com. Again, that's emotionalcurrencycourse.com. I'll share a little bit more about it. So you get not only the 7 90-minute live sessions with Kate, which is on video, so there's the intimacy of video, and you also have live interactive Q&A time. So you can really surface your deepest questions, your deepest challenges. As she said, she really wants to make this adaptable to whatever your particular constellation of beliefs or challenges are. So you get the class sessions. There's audio recordings of those, video recordings. You also get full transcripts, which are word for word, so you can go back over it. And there are going to be weekly exercises and practices you can do at home, as well as an online learning community. Course is going to start on June 26th. Even if you can't make the live time, you can still get the full value from the program by participating fully in the recordings and the online community. There's also some extra bonuses I want to mention. One is called Emotional Currency, Untangling Our Relationship with Money. That's a dialogue between Kate and Allison Marks from our recent summit, our host of the Money and Women Summit. We also have a dialogue between Maggie Cervantes and Sabrina Cha called Redefining Your Finances to Redefining Your Sense of Self. Another angle on how to really shift the relationship with money. And also one on manifesting money. It's an inside job with Deborah Price and Sabrina Cha. These come from our Thriving in Your Third Act Summit last year. We also have a special bonus that's available only today, and this is with one of my money heroes, or heroines, I guess, Lynn Twist, who wrote a book called The Soul of Money. And she's really been at the forefront of a lot of innovations in a relationship with money, and also manifested a tremendous amount of resources for philanthropic purposes. So she's very inspiring, very empowering, and really also talking about the spiritual dimension of this. So you get a bonus with her, an interview with her, with Allison Marks, called The Soul of Money, when you sign up by midnight tonight. So we've made the investment very accessible. It's just 3 payments of $109, or you save about 10% when you pay in full at $297. So again, this is an investment that pays many, many dividends, because once you shift the deeper levels of your relationship with money, not just some surface rah, 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 make more money, this and that. This is like really doing the deeper tectonic work on the things that are deep in your psyche that often affect and color and distort our relationship with life, really. And so when you do that excavation and you do the healing work, then it really frees up a lot of life force and a lot of energy and a lot of creativity, and ultimately a more prosperous sense of how you live your life. So I encourage you to go to the page. It's really clear from the testimonials. I mean, Kate has a testimonial from Robert Reich, who is the former U.S. Secretary of Labor, and Rachel Naomi Remen, some of the most eminent thinkers on money in our culture, Jacob Needleman, and really appreciating the warmth and wisdom and depth that Kate brings. So you'll be in good hands and for a journey of healing and transformation. And I know you're going to come out with a lot of really positive benefits. So you can find all the details again at emotionalcurrencycourse.com, emotionalcurrencycourse.com. So Kate, really lovely hour with you. Thank you so much. I feel like just your presence and wisdom alone kind of shifts the dynamics. Anything that's still on your heart you want to share with folks who are considering doing the 7-week journey with you?
I just invite people. It's the intention to become more awake And I love how you said it, Stephen. I mean, it's so much bigger than our relationship to money. It can awaken so much in our lives, capacities and energies and appreciations and paths, new paths open. So I just hope people who are interested will join me on this journey. And I'm so appreciative to the Shift Network for giving me this opportunity to reach new people and to reach an audience. So thank you so much for all your support.
Well, thank you. And I know that everyone who joins you on this journey is going to be very blessed to really free up more of their creative life force for the good, for everything that you're here to do and be. So thank you, Kate, for your wisdom, and thank you all for joining us. And we warmly welcome anyone who would like to go further into the Understanding Your Emotional Currency program, which you can find at emotionalcurrencycourse.com, and you get the extra bonus with Lynn Twist when you sign up by midnight tonight. So thank you, Kate. Thank you all, and may we all go forth and be in greater flow and greater ease and greater wholeness with money after this hour, and also for those who want to go deeper in the upcoming program. So thank you.
Thank you.